Hello, I'm the last one up for this Woohoo Weekend presentation. My name is Tracy Held. I'm in Melbourne in Australia, and although it's our Black Friday weekend, it's actually Saturday morning here. But it seems like Black Friday doesn't go for a Friday anymore. It seems to extend right through until Monday. So I'm just going to call it the Black Weekend. And we're going to have some fun. I hope that you've enjoyed all the presentations so far. I'm sure by now that you've figured out the sort of format for this. We each normally do one project and then give you one tip or trick which is either related to our project or is going to help in your stamping. I'm going to be a bit of a rebel and I'm actually going to do two projects. I figure, hey, it's Black Friday weekend, everybody's shopping, so I'm going to give you 2 for 1 in my presentation. And I am going to show you how to modify something, so that's a bit of a tip or a trick if you like. And that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So let me show you what we're going to make today. So we're doing this sort of easel fold card where you've got the wreath that's poking up in the background. It will fold flat for you to post. And we're making a matching little gift bag which is going to go with it. Now, where I say this is a trick, I'm actually using the mini pocket dies. So we're taking the mini pocket dies, 2 of those, and modifying them to make it into our little box. So let's get started. I think that we'll work on the card first. Now, this is actually a fun card. It's really easy, and I'm sure that Carol went through and showed you all the elements that are in the stamp set. I haven't actually seen her presentation because it happened while I was sleeping, but she's normally pretty good with showing you stuff. So I'm not going to go through all the different elements in the bundle, the suite, whatever we want to call it. The things that I am adding to it, so I've got my stamps, I've got the matching dies. I'm adding the double oval punch, obviously my mini pocket dies, which is coming in for the bag. And you can adapt this card any way you like. So if you wanted to make it Christmas, you could stamp your holly, or you can use your red rhinestones to make little berries on them. I've added the loose flower flourishes. These are in the annual catalogue and they actually are really pretty. And let's see if you can see here. You actually get the bigger flowers and you get these teeny little ones that all come in your pack. Okay, I'm not sure if I can even see, the writing is so teeny how many flowers come in here, but you do get quite a lot of those. Okay, so to make the card, you're cutting your length of paper lengthways, folding it in half, and then you're going to fold it in half again. Okay. Then what I've done here is I've taken one of my layering circle dies, and I'm not sure which one it is. I forgot to count, but it's one that's going to fit onto the back of my wreath. So I want this here smaller than my wreath so that that's actually going to stick on there and have something holding it. But we don't want the wreath falling through. Hi Carol, I'm hoping that you gave all the information about the suite because I figured you would have, so I'm not. Okay, so that's how we're making our card. And I've just realized that I was so organized, but I didn't grab my backing. So give me 1 second. Let me just grab a piece of paper as backing here. Okay, and my pear pizzazz has just become old olive because that was all that I could find on my table. But hopefully, and it's cut to the wrong size. 1 second. Okay, I'm normally so careful just making sure that I've got everything that I need, and obviously this time I slipped up. And we need some scrap paper to stamp on. Okay, now I should have absolutely everything that I need because I've got everything else here, hopefully all planned for. So what we're going to do is take my wreath, and I'm just stamping the wreath that it's going across my corners. Now, like I was saying, if you're making this a Christmas card and you want to stamp your berries or anything in it, you can do that. That's fine. I'm just going to take this other little florally stamp, okay, and add some extra leaves around. So I want it quite full with my actual stamping. And you know, it depends on what you like. Do you like having white space showing, or do you like everything completely covered up? So personal preference, you can stamp as much or as little as you like. It looks like, oops, that didn't stamp very well. Looks like today's the day that I want lots of leaves in there. I may even want one more over there. Okay, so that's my very leafy stamping happening over here. And I'm just thinking I haven't cut any of those out. Okay, we're going to stamp something in there later. Now, while I'm stamping, let's stamp my sentiment. So you've got a few different sentiments in here. I'm using the Some People Just Make Life Better. And for this card, I'm going to use Fresh Freesia rather than the Polished Pink, just because you've got the Fresh Freesia and the Polished Pink in your flowers. So I thought I would change up the color of my flowers. Okay, there you go. Carol's awesome. So she's just like my producer over here, telling me all the information that I don't know. 60 pieces in the loose flower flourishes. Thank you, Carol. What would I do without you? Okay. So we're just going to stamp out that, rather punch out the sentiment. And I've obviously stamped that a little bit too hard. But it doesn't fit in that one, right? Okay, so it just fits in the scalloped oval. I was thinking I normally do the straight one for the middle and then the scalloped one on the outside, and I was looking at this going, I don't know why it doesn't fit, because it did fit on my other one. Reason is because I used the different oval. And I'm going to punch out another one in my Fresh Freesia cardstock. Let's just deal with my sentiment while we're busy here. So I'm going to cut that down the middle. And I'm sure if you've seen my presentations, you've seen me do this often. This is one of my favorite things. Take the same sentiment piece, cut it down the middle, and then just stick it onto the back so that it just gives you that little edge of color around the side. And obviously, if you look at the back of that, you do see that gap, but that's going to be stuck down, so nobody's going to see that anyway. Now what we're going to do with these wreaths, I'm going to say back layer, but it doesn't necessarily mean, has got these little leaves that you can pop up. So that just gives it a bit of movement and it makes it look a bit more realistic. So you can, if you want to, go and pop up every one of them, but you don't have to. So, just go through and pop up a few that you want popped up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the top one, which is less substantial, maybe a bit more lacy than the bottom one, and just go lightly with the glue. Okay, we're going to pop those around and then stick that on top. Now it will sometimes match, it sometimes doesn't. I don't necessarily want it matching exactly, so I'm going to just try and offset those leaves a little bit and give it a minute for that glue to actually attach itself. Now when I stick the wreath on, we want to make sure that we're only sticking it along the bottom. Okay, so I want that to be able to pop up, and if I've stuck that flat, it's not going to pop. Okay, so glue along one half of the wreath. Okay, and it doesn't matter which half, because obviously it doesn't matter, but just make sure that when you're sticking it, you're gluing down the right half. Okay, and yeah, Susan, I use that all the time for my backgrounds. I just like giving that little bit of color around the edge. You could sponge as well, but just using the same piece of paper, well, a piece of paper with the color, just ties everything in and pulls it all together. All right, now let's stick this. You could do it without the background piece, but again, I like the color around the edge, and I just think it gives it just that little bit more support for your card. So I'm going to stick that onto my background piece. Now, things got a little bit tricky when I was sticking my sentiment, except this time I want to just stamp a few leaves in here because I forgot to die cut them in advance, and I hate die cutting while I'm on camera because I generally like having everything organized so that you don't have to sit and look at nothing. Oops, we got some glue on there. Okay, so I'm going to just stamp a couple of leaves there, and okay, this is called improvising. Now I don't want to go too high here because we do still want to leave room that you can write your sentiments. I'm going to put that quite low because my sentiment is going to go over it. So you want your sentiment on dimensionals because you need that height behind it, that it's going to be able to form the easel. put 3 just to hold it really nicely. Now, what I was saying to you is you want to watch this, because I got myself into a bit of a tiz. When the card is closed, I didn't want to have my sentiment like peeping out there. Okay, so you want to, if it's going to upset you like it did me, just make sure that where you're positioning your sentiment, it's going to be low enough that you're not going to see it through your hole there, and it's actually lower than you expect it to be. I think that we think that it's going to be quite high up, but it's actually quite low. Okay, that's going to be good, and it's going to go in place to hold my card up once it's done. Now the fun part, let's decorate the wreath. So I've stamped and cut out some of these ribbons. Have you seen the ribbons in the stamp set? Don't you? It's one of those distinctive stamps where it gives the light and the dark images, and I think that they are absolutely beautiful. I love the way this ribbon comes out. It looks like it's sort of tulle ribbon and it's all soft and pretty. Right, so I'm going to stick that onto the bottom of my wreath first. You could leave it until last, but I find it easier to actually position my ribbon and then work with the flowers around it, just because then it gives me a better idea of where I'm positioning them. And I stick these flowers on using my mini glue dots. So starting with the bigger ones for the wreath. I'm just trying to figure out what order we're going in, because I'm going to stick them all down. So I want, because and you can do whatever order you like, or no order. You can randomly pull flowers. I think that I sometimes get a little bit OTT. Oops, I know I have glue dots on my finger, but okay. It doesn't matter. Now I have to stick this one because it wasn't behaving itself. Okay, and I don't know if it's necessary, but because I'm using Fresh Freesia, I'm going to put my Fresh Freesia one at the top. Okay, then I think that this is Pale Papaya, so let's pop that. Then I'll do another one of my Polished Pink and another Pale Papaya. And then these tiny, tiny little ones are a bit too small for the glue dots. You could try cut your glue dot, but that's getting really, really finicky. And you could also fold it up, but what I did is I just, and again, go really lightly on the glue here. I just put a tiny dot of my glue behind it, and I'm putting, and then the flowers stick to your fingers. Okay, so we're going to put one of those, and I will get rid of the glue that I got onto the inside of the card, and I'm putting some of these little flowers along my sentiment. I have to admit that I've had these flowers, but I think we all do it. You buy something, you think, oh, that looks amazing, I have to have it. And then it sort of sits there and you don't actually use it very much. But now that I've pulled these flowers out, I'm looking at them and going, I don't know why I haven't used them, because they are actually really, really pretty, and they do give something to your cards. They just give that bit of a lift and make them look really. I think I've seen other people use them. I think that if I remember correctly, Shirley's used them quite a bit, and I've always looked at it and gone, oh, those are beautiful. But now that I finally pulled mine out, I don't know why I haven't used them more often. Okay. Oops. Alright, so there we go. There's our card. This one looks like it's a bit softer because the Fresh Freesia is your paler color rather than that polished pink, but still pretty. There you go. See, Shirley loves the acrylic flowers. Inspiration by you, Shirley. Alright, so let's put this aside for the glue to dry, and I'm going to show you how to make the gift bag. And like I said, this is my trick or my tip, and I'm sticking to my story. So there we go. What I've done is I've cut 2 of the mini treat boxes. No, mini pocket dies. Sorry, they're the mini pocket dies. And if you make these up, they do make up sort of a very little kind of an envelope, which are really nice to use for gift cards. If you're giving gift cards, these make really nice presents for the gift cards. Now, what you can do is you will get your card and your bag, once it's a bag, out of one sheet of cardstock. Now, I'm not quite sure about the letter size paper, but for my metric size, you may find that your cardstock is slightly short for your die. Don't worry about that. So when you position it, because you've cut it lengthways, just make sure that you've got the top of the die, because we're going to want that to give us our little edging. But we're cutting off this bottom tag anyway. So if that's slightly short, that doesn't matter. All right, so grab my trimmer. And what we're going to do is, like I just said to you, cut off that bottom tag on both of your mini pocket dies. And then I'm going to score this. Make sure you put your cutting blade away. Okay, so we're going to score that at 3 centimeters or your 1 1/4 inches. Now we need to do some cutting. Right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off my side tag at the bottom over here. Alright, so we're going to just angle that and cut that off. And we're doing the same on the other one. And then if I fold up my die, okay, so we've got that, and I've got my little tab, and we've got the bottom. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of notch that. If you just give this tiny little sort of V cut to your tabs, it just helps them fold up and they sit nicer when they're folded. So doing that. Oops, let me fold this nicely. Okay, on. Okay, I did not fold that very nicely on that score line. Let's fix that. There we go, that looks better. And we're going to just give it that little V there as well. And I just think I've notched one, folded one the one way and one the other way, which was a stupid thing to do because they should both be folded the same way. Now, the other thing which you may have noticed is I've punched little holes in here. We want something to be able to fold the ribbon through, so it's easier to do it when your pocket is flat. So what I did is I took my two, put them together, and then this tiny little die comes in with like mini pocket dies. Now it's got this little edging across the top, so what I did was I placed the edging that it was sitting on the top and then ran it through my cut and emboss machine, both pieces together, so that it's punching the hole at the same place on both pieces. And you're doing the same again, just a little bit over. So there's no specific measurements for that, just eyeball it and punch out those holes. And then before we assemble the box, I'm just going to do some stamping. Now, just want to make sure that we're stamping on the right side. And again, as much or as little stamping as you want. So I'm taking my wreath and I'm stamping it that it is going onto the tab, because just remember that you've got your ribbon that's going to feed through the holes there. So you don't want that ribbon through the holes because you're going to be sticking your flowers. And then another one just on the sides over here. Right. Minimal stamping on the wreath, and you can see I've got it on the sides and the back. Did we need it on the back? I don't know, but I wanted something. But I did decide that because it's got an obvious front and back because of where our bow's tying, I wasn't going to stick my flowers on the back. If you wanted to, so that it looks the same back and front, of course, there's no reason that you can't do that. Now we're going to stick our tab. So we're sticking now the two mini pockets together. Okay. And then we're sticking it closed. You can use tear and tape. I find that if you're quite generous with the liquid glue, of course don't be so generous that it squishes out over everything. Then if you just give it time to get sticky, it sticks really well and it doesn't come loose. So depending on how full you're actually going to stuff your little bag, it shouldn't have too much pressure on it that it is all holding. Okay, and then we're just going to fold in the sides. Now, if you're fussy, then here's where my join is, except that you've got joins on both sides here. That was a stupid comment. Okay, so it doesn't matter which is the front and which is the back. You're not going to have an obvious front and back. You know, sometimes if you've only got one join on the side, then you want that to be your back. So you want to just watch that you're gluing that down, that that's the back. In this case, it's not making any difference. So we'll just, I'm going to put glue on this side and then I'm going to turn it over and make sure that it's sitting square and just give a bit of a push that those are staying down. And then what I want to do is pinch in my sides. So wait for the glue to set first. Okay, let's not be so impatient. You can do this box with DSP, then you wouldn't have the stamping. And of course your DSP is a little bit, for lack of a better word, flimsier than your cardstock. So then it's not going to be as difficult to squish. But if you just make sure that you're getting your holes together and then just pinch in the side so it's giving that bit of shape to the box. There we go. And then decide which you want as your front and which you want as your back. Now this really doesn't want to play nicely with me and stay stuck. You've squished in beautifully, but stay stuck. Okay, let's decorate our wreath again. I maybe stamped that a little bit too low, but that's okay. Now, I want to be careful because obviously I want my my bow to stay on, and we don't want it over, but seeing that I'm being a rebel today, I'm going to stick my bow on the side. Who said that the bow has to go on the bottom of the wreath? I'm saying it can go on the side. Okay, so we're going to stick that there. And then again, we're going to stick my flowers around it. I don't know whether this is a really old glue dots or whether they started winding them the other way around. Did you find that they always used to, it used to be like this where your glue dots were against the roll, and then all of a sudden it seemed like the glue dots were on the bit that was peeling off, and that always used to irritate me because I found it much easier to press my bow or my embellishments or whatever I want the glue dot on against the roll. But now, like I say, I don't know whether this is a really old one or whether they started winding it the other way, but I'm very happy with this lot of glue dots because it's actually, I can press against the roll. To me that just makes everything so much easier. Okay, and we're going to put one of our teeny tiny little ones in the middle of our bow again. Now again, if you wanted to change the color, you can change the color, but for me, I just like it with the same color flower because then it looks like it's sort of an added decorative bit onto the bow, the knot of the bow. And the last thing that we need to do is tie our bag closed. So for this one, I'm using the In Color ribbon. This is last year's In Colors. That's when I used the crinkled seam binding ribbon and I just squished it into my petaled pink ink pad. So you can either do that or you can color it with blends. The only best hint I can give you is that if you're doing that, do that before you start your project and give it lots of time to dry because the ink does come off. Now, be quite generous because you want to give yourself enough ribbon to tie a bow. There's nothing worse than trying to tie a bow that's coming up short. And if you cut it at an angle, it gives you a little point that you can push through the holes. If it's fraying as you're pushing it through, you can always just cut it off at the end once you've got it threaded through. But like I said, I don't really like to waste stuff, but when it comes to ribbon and tying bows, there's nothing more frustrating than trying to tie a bow when you don't have enough ribbon, and particularly if you're going to tie it and then you want to untie it to put something into your gift box, then just be nice to yourself and give yourself lots of ribbon. And in this case, I was very, very nice and gave myself heaps of ribbon. I could probably get about 3 bows out of this, but hey, it's always harder to tie bows when you're on camera and you have glue all over your fingers. Alright, so let's pull that a little bit smaller. And like I said, I'm going to just leave longish tails over here so that when we need to retie it, we can retie it. And I'm pretty sure that these ends can become, particularly that one, can become another bow. Alright, so there's my 2-for-1 projects for my presentation, and here are the cards that go with the little bags. I think it's really an awkward angle with the bags because you can't see them from up front. So that's our bags, and then my hand is in the way of the card, so pop down to post, but it's gonna pop up, so you could put some little treats or a little something in there. If you wanted to give a gift card, make the same thing with the mini pockets envelope flat. Alright, so I know that in the States you're still on Friday night, so you obviously can still do some shopping. We're Saturday morning here, so I'm going to take my husband and we're going to go off and have a relaxing brunch, and then I think we'll come back and he might do some shopping because there's some stuff that he's been looking for. He's the tech guy, so he's been waiting for the sales. And I might do some more stamping as relaxing for the rest of the weekend. So I've got one more engagement post coming up. Let's see if we've got any twins on this group, and you will see what I mean once my post comes up. For the rest of us, thank you for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed the presentations, that we've given you some ideas of how to use the stamp sets that we've been showcasing. If you want to order those stamp sets, please go back to the demonstrator that invited you to this and place your order. I know that the retiring list is coming up, and I don't remember everything. I'm pretty sure that the cottage wreaths is carrying over, but I don't think that you'll be able to get it at the bundle price. It's going to be unbundled. So if you want to save your 10%, it's time to order it now before that mini catalog ends. So enjoy the rest of your crafting, enjoy the rest of your shopping, have a great weekend. Thank you, Carol, for helping me as my producer in the background over there. And from all the presenters, thank you for watching us. Have a great weekend, and we will catch you next time. I just suddenly thought of something else that I wanted to. I'm sure that all of you are in the Global SU Share Fair group. So we're going to be running a sort of Christmas list presentation there starting on the 1st of December. Every day we're going to have a different Christmas themed presentation. So be sure to tune in for that. If you're not part of that group, speak to your demonstrator and ask them to get you added to that, because we've got some really fun projects coming up in that Christmas presentation. I will stop talking now. Enjoy your weekend. Until next time. Bye.